And so, on our 18th film musical in this series, we come at last to Meet Me in St. Louis. Or if you want to go by the song, Meet Me in St. Louis, right? A huge hit starring Judy Garland, directed by the great Vincent Minnelli, and released by MGM in 1944. Now, Nancy Meyer and I are going to do the Q&A on December 10, but we want to go on record right here and now as saying we sure do agree with the character in this movie who uses the phrase Ginger Peachy. And this is one film that we figure you know pretty darn well. It's warm and cozy, right? But I think it also runs surprisingly deep. So keep that in mind as you watch the film for the 14th time and follow the Smith family's life for 1 year, from the summer of 1903 through the spring of 1904, when the St. Louis World's Fair at last arrives in a blaze of glory. It was producer Arthur Freed's idea to fashion a musical based on Sally Benson's stories of her childhood 40 years earlier at 5135 Kensington Avenue. The stories first appeared in The New Yorker, then they were collected in a best-selling book. Freed's idea, his timing, spot on. Because Meet Me in St. Louis is what I like to call an Americana musical. These were fictional tales of our country, or more accurately, white America, in the years just before World War II, during the war, and for about 10 years afterwards, give or take. As Celeste Holm once said about Oklahoma, as you know, the most famous of these musicals, it reminded us of what we were fighting to preserve. These films had nostalgic hearts, to be sure. There was sentiment to spare, but I think the best of them explored the sentiment without manipulating our tears with sentimentality. In short, many of the Americana musicals were honest and felt real, never more so than in Meet Me in St. Louis. The film history books report that this was a very happy production, except in the beginning, when there were two little problems. Judy Garland, cast as 17-year-old Esther, just did not want to play teenagers anymore. She was on the cusp of 21 at the time, and it took a lot of persuading before she fully invested in making this movie. And the studio execs complained that there wasn't enough plot in the story, that not enough happened in the Smith family to keep audiences interested. Much of the credit for solving those problems goes to Vincent Minnelli's conception for the film. This was to be his first musical shot in Technicolor. Now, as you know, we've used our series to praise the art of black and white cinema, and I always will do that. But this one just had to be shot in color by a 41-year-old director who had made his name designing sets and costumes for Broadway before going west. And Minnelli was known as one of the kindest men in Hollywood. So Garland came to trust everything he wanted her to do. And in fact, by the time the film came out, they were engaged to be married. It's been said that Garland never looked more beautiful than in Vincent Minnelli's hands, photographed by George Foley. I mean, she simply glows, doesn't she? As for lack of conflict, after rejecting the original screenplay, Vincent Minnelli and a whole bunch of screenwriters, ending up with Irving Brecker, came up with a doozy. The crisis that develops when Father Alonzo Smith, played by Leon Ames, is offered a job in New York, which will mean uprooting the entire family from their beloved St. Louis right after Christmas. But spoiler alert, don't worry, it doesn't happen. And, Minnelli has it both ways. Conflict, yes, actually a potential tragedy in that move to New York City. But at the same time, he provides so many moments that reveal the quiet bond the Smith family have with each other. He also creates a powerful symbol of their life on Kensington Avenue, inspired by the paintings of Thomas Eakins. The family home is classic American Gothic architecture depicted as a postcard as each new season begins. Isn't that wonderful? And then Minnelli dissolves into live action. Every performance in this film is flawless, but of course I have to single out the 7-year-old Margaret O'Brien as Tootie, who gets second billing right after Judy Garland. Tootie is the youngest and the most feisty of the 5 Smith brood, and she has a wild imagination that is both astonishing and endearing. O'Brien won a special juvenile Oscar for this role, and her performance, especially in the scary doings on Halloween and the heart-piercing Christmas scene, these allow Minnelli to erase any hint of sentimentality. Margaret O'Brien captures a child's journey at every turn. By the way, the original writer, Sally Benson, revealed that in real life, she was the wide-eyed Tootie, and that the characters were based on her own family. We care about them all, including the no-nonsense maid played by MGM's always reliable Marjorie Main. Now it's time to talk about the songs, because here too Vincent Minnelli was inspired. Naturally, he wanted new ones, but he also wanted to evoke the period by adding songs of the day, popular songs of the day. That's why the opening number is the vintage Meet Me in St. Louis, Louis, which makes it clear that the fair is a huge coming attraction in this family's life. There's the traditional Skip to My Lou and Over the Banister. And the 1903 Under the Bamboo Tree was appropriated from African American songwriters Bob Cole and J. Rosamond Johnson. There were 4 new songs. Freed and his longtime partner Nacio Herb Brown penned You and I, a charmer for the parents. But now hold on, because it is time to salute a composer and lyricist who has been called an unsung genius of Broadway and Hollywood. His name, Hugh Martin. The 3 major new songs in this movie are credited on screen to Hugh Martin and Ralph Blaine, but actually they're all by Hugh, who died in 2011 at the age of 97. And I'm so pleased to tell you that in the last 10 years of his life, we became dear friends. We talked on the phone every Saturday after he heard my radio program in California. I even produced a 3-part, 3-hour radio documentary on him, a full-scale interview, and we're going to rebroadcast it in January. I hope you get a chance to hear it. If you don't know Hugh by name, that's because he worked so painstakingly that he never became prolific like his friends Rodgers and Hammerstein. But for 6 decades, he spun gold in both words and music. After just 1 Broadway hit show in 1941, Best Foot Forward, Arthur Freed brought Martin and Blaine to Hollywood to work on Meet Me in St. Louis. As I probably don't need to tell you, for Hugh, the stakes could not have been higher.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, I knew that I would never get a chance like that again. I was sensible enough to know that I would never get Judy Garland Vincent Minnelli directing, Arthur Freed producing it, Margaret O'Brien in the role of her life, and I knew I had to come up with the best work I'd ever done. So I never went out for about 3 months. I was practically chained to the piano. I would eat and sleep and go back to the piano. And I and that piano were together night and day when I wasn't eating or sleeping. And as a result, I did 3 sensational songs, said he modestly.
Such a gentle soul was Hugh Martin. And so now, what were the 3 songs that Hugh wrote for Meet Me in St. Louis, songs that remain with us today? First, The Boy Next Door, with its daring opening intervals. For you musicians out there, it opens with a series of suspended dominant 9th chords that are really hard to sing, as you will be able to tell as I attempt them. The song begins, ba-da-ba-dum, bum-bum, bum-bum, bum-bum. Tricky stuff. And he was so proud of the song because he pointed out that even Gershwin and Arlen never did anything like that. Second, the Trolley Song, which remained number 1 on the hit parade for 7 straight weeks, and which Judy Garland recorded, ready for this? She recorded the song in 1 take. And I have to throw in the fact that Frank Sinatra would never sing the Trolley Song because he said too many words. And I say to that, your loss, Frank? And third, of course, is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Alec Wilder found it almost childlike in its innocence. And it's so touchingly connected with World War II. By the way, Hugh told me the music box in that scene, that was his idea. Well, all 3 songs, those are all essential pieces of the Great American Songbook. And, something else about Hugh Martin, he was also a fantastic vocal arranger. Wait till you hear what he does with Skip to My Lou. Well, there is what Vincent Minnelli called a wistful longing about this film, which rings so true, so earnest, that there are scenes that feel like folklore, or as one critic put it, scenes that feel like domestic poetry. Historian Ethan Mordden sums it all up by writing, Meet Me in St. Louis believes in itself almost devoutly. I sure do hope you agree. I'm Bill Rudman from the Musical Theater Project, wishing you happy holidays.